The Chicago wind cut through my coat as though it weren't even there, threading its icy fingers through the gaps in my scarf as I trudged up the uneven sidewalk toward my apartment building. February had claimed the city with its usual gray spite, painting everything the shade of old dishwater. My marketing specialist badge still hung around my neck, a laminated testament to my 55th hour of work this week finally coming to an end. I should have been replaying the presentation I'd nailed or the client email that complimented my campaign strategy. Instead, all I could think about was collapsing onto my secondhand couch and pretending the world didn't exist for a few stolen hours. The security door clicked shut behind a delivery driver who was just leaving, and I fished for my fob. Noting the handwritten sign taped to the glass security cameras under maintenance. Typical West Side charm, but at least the magnetic lock engaged with a satisfying thud, separating the chaos outside from my little sanctuary. I'd long since stopped complaining about the building's quirks. At 26, making $55,000 a year in one of the country's priciest cities, I'd learned to pick my battles. I believed the heavy steel door kept me safe. I didn't realize then that a locked door is merely a deterrent to honest people, not to someone patient enough to wait for a neighbor's polite mistake that my apartment was on the third floor. 3C. The hallway always smelled like Mrs. Higgins cooking from 3AA, a pungent mix of garlic and some floral undertone I'd never identified. Today, though, something felt off. I slid my key into the deadbolt. It turned smoothly, as always. No scratches, no signs of forced entry. The door swung open on squeaky hinges, and I stepped inside. That's when I felt it. The sensation when you enter a room and know, somehow, that someone else has been there. It's not rational. You can't point to it and say, aha, proof. It's deeper, almost instinctual, a shift in the air, a disturbance in the energy of your personal space. My $800 TV still perched on its cheap IKEA stand, catching the fading afternoon light. My laptop sat on the kitchen counter where I'd left it that morning. Nothing was missing. Nothing overtly wrong. And yet, everything was wrong. I set my purse down carefully, my hand brushing my phone instinctively. The photos on the shelf, Hannah's graduation, Maya at karaoke were tilted, just slightly, as if someone had handled them carelessly and reset them without thought. I moved toward the kitchen. That's when the smell hit me. Tomato sauce. Rich, seasoned, undeniably homemade. But I hadn't cooked tomato sauce in weeks. My fridge held a half-rotting bell pepper, some questionable milk, and a drawer of takeout condiments. That was the reality of 50-hour weeks on a survival wage. My heart pounded. Rationally, I knew I should call 911. Someone had been inside, touching my things, cooking in my kitchen. Yet another voice, the one I'd trained since childhood, whispered to stay calm. Don't overreact. Maybe there's a reasonable explanation. Maybe the photos were always like that. Maybe the smell drifted from a neighbor. Maybe my mind was fraying after another brutal week of stretching $55,000 across rent, loans, and basic survival. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. I stopped by to leave some food and see if my daughter is okay. Your fridge was too empty. My vision tunneled. My breath caught. She had been here. Patricia Shepard, my mother, had walked through my apartment, opened my refrigerator, judged my life. Another text followed instantly. Use my spare key. Hope you don't mind. Love you. Hope I don't mind. The memory crashed over me. 2 years ago, moving day. My first apartment. My mother had helped carry boxes up 3 flights of stairs, admired the tiny space, hugged me tight, praised my independence. And then she'd paused at the door. Honey, can I keep a spare key? For emergencies? Her voice was reasonable, maternal, full of concern. My gut had twisted, warning me, but how do you say no to your mother? How do you deny the woman who raised you access to your home? So I'd said yes, smiling, believing her overprotectiveness was love. Now I stared at her text, feeling the fool I'd been. Hands trembling, I pulled up her contact and hit call. It rang 3 times. Leah, I was just thinking about you. Did you get my message? I left some chicken casserole in the fridge. Mom. You can't just come into my apartment whenever you want. Silence. I was just trying to help. You didn't ask permission. I'm your mother, Leah. Since when do I need permission to make sure you're eating? You work those terrible hours, and I know you're not taking care of yourself. Someone has to. I'm 26. I can take care of myself. Can you? Her voice hardened. Because your fridge told a different story. Half-empty shelves. Expired milk. Stop. My hand clenched the counter, knuckles white. I need that key back. Silence stretched. Then thick with tears. You're going to take my key? Lock your own mother out like I'm a criminal? Mom, please, after everything we've done, after the sacrifices, tuition, putting you first. Her voice cracked. Is this how you repay us? Treat me like I'm not welcome in my own daughter's home? Guilt surged, hot and familiar. The dance of my life. Set a boundary, she weaponizes emotion. I held firm. You're welcome here. Call first, ask, don't just walk in. Fine, cold, if that's what you want. I'll give you your precious key back tomorrow after work. Will that satisfy you? Yes. She hung up in my kitchen. The apartment no longer felt like mine. The casserole sat warm in the fridge. I couldn't eat it. She must have kept the original key I gave her 2 years ago and gone to a hardware store to cut a duplicate to hand back to me. It wasn't a mistake, it was a performance. A calculated move meant to make me think I'd won while she still maintained access. She still had a key to my apartment. I felt queasy. The violation ran deeper than I'd realized. She had planned this, intentionally deceiving me, knowing I would trust her word. I grabbed my phone and called the first locksmith I could find on Google. 24-hour service. Thankful. 90 minutes later, a tired-looking man in his 50s arrived, clearly interrupted from dinner. Someone you know have a key? He asked, kneeling at the door. My mother. He didn't even glance up. Yeah, that's about 70% of my emergency calls. Parents, exes, former roommates. People think a key is love. It's not. It's just metal. The wisdom of a locksmith on a Friday night at 9. I would have laughed if I hadn't been seething. The invoice came, $250. New deadbolt, new doorknob lock, 2 new keys for me. I stared at the number, chest tightening. That was my weekend, gone. Groceries for 2 weeks. My small buffer against my credit card. I handed over my debit card, already calculating instant ramen dinners in my future. But I could breathe again. She couldn't get in now. The locks were mine. But the attack had shifted to a new front. Sunday afternoon brought the first text from Dad. Robert Shepard rarely texted. He preferred to deliver his judgments in person or by phone. So the very fact this arrived as a text meant it was deliberate. I spent over $40,000 on your college tuition. Not for you to treat your parents like strangers. Don't let the money I worked hard for raise an ungrateful child. I read it 3 times. My blood pressure climbed with every pass, and the figure $40,000 was enough to reduce our entire relationship to a transaction. 4 years at a state university, scholarships, loans, and parental contributions all weaponized into a guilt bomb designed to detonate my resistance. Another text followed. Your mother cried for 2 hours after you accused her of being a criminal. Is this who you've become? One typed and deleted 5 responses. Every word I wanted to say about boundaries, respect, or the necessity of changing locks would have been twisted. Evidence of ingratitude, of coldness, of some person they no longer recognized. So I stayed silent. I let the messages sit unread, but silence didn't protect me. Patricia escalated, calling 3 times a day at first, then more. Her voicemails began sweet checking in on me, on my life, and ended with barbs. Robert sent emails to my work account. Professional at first glance, but beneath the surface, manipulation lingered. Hope you're doing well. Mom mentioned you've been stressed. We're always here if you need to talk about what's really going on. Really going on? As if my need for privacy was a symptom requiring diagnosis. Calls arrived during lunch, meetings, and the quiet morning hours I treasured before work. My phone became a weapon pointed at my peace of mind. I started letting everything go to voicemail. I stopped reading the texts immediately. But even that wasn't enough. The notifications piled up, buzzing like bills I couldn't pay. Hannah noticed first. We were having coffee on a rare Wednesday break when she snatched my phone from the table. Leah, you have 47 unread messages. I know. Are they all from? Mostly. I silenced it, my chest tight. Some are from Dad now, too. Hannah's concern shifted to anger. They're tag teaming you. I changed the locks. They can't get any more, but they're still getting to you. She leaned forward, voice dropping. You've lost weight. You look exhausted. When's the last time you slept through the night? I didn't answer. We both knew the truth. The lock on the door had stopped the physical intrusion, but the psychological siege had only escalated. Patricia had moved beyond voicemails. She began showing up at my building, lingering in the lobby, never upstairs. The first time I saw her, my heart nearly stopped. She sat on the old couch near the mailboxes, small, sad, perfectly positioned to intercept me. I'm in the neighborhood, she'd said, as if the West Side were anywhere near her pristine suburban home 40 minutes away. I thought maybe we could talk. Really talk without all this anger between us. I kept walking, heart racing, hands trembling. I have plans, Mom, plans. I said it like she'd accused me of joining a cult. You always have plans now. Plans that don't include your family. I couldn't stop. If I did, if I engaged, she would pull me back under. That was a week ago. She'd returned twice since. Always in the neighborhood. Always with that wounded expression that made me feel monstrous for wanting space. The harassment over phone and text continued. The moral pressure mounted. My inbox became a minefield. We need to talk about your behavior, worried about you. Where did we go wrong? Sitting alone on a Sunday night, phone buzzing for the 15th time, I realized I'd been fighting the wrong battle. A physical lock only blocks a door. It doesn't stop manipulation, guilt, or the steady erosion of your boundaries through relentless pressure. They were teaching me a lesson. You can change the locks, but you can't change the fact that we own you. We paid for your education. We raised you. We have rights to you that no deadbolt can undo. I stood in my apartment, my supposed refuge that no longer felt like one, and knew something had to break. I couldn't live this way. Not another week. Not another month. Not another year of my life. The new locks had cost $250, but the cost of my peace, my sanity, my ability to function as an independent adult, that number climbed higher every single day. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Patricia. I made your favorite meatloaf tonight. Remember how you used to help me when you were little? I miss those days. I miss my daughter. I stared at the words, I miss my daughter, and felt something inside me harden. She didn't miss me. She missed the version of me who never said no, never pushed back, never demanded to be treated like an adult with rights and privacy. That version was gone, and I was beginning to understand that no amount of explaining, no calm conversation, no hoping they'd suddenly understand, would ever make them accept it. The lock on my door was only the first step. I'd stopped them from entering my physical space, but they were still living in my head, in my phone, in every emotional corner of my life. I needed something stronger. I just didn't know yet what it was. The fragile quiet lasted exactly 2 weeks. That's how long it took for my mother to test me again. I should have known better than to believe the peace would hold. And what I hadn't accounted for was that Patricia Shepard doesn't accept shields. She dismantles them. It was a Tuesday afternoon when my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I was at my desk, halfway through a presentation deck for a client, when the 312 area code flashed across my screen. "This is Leah," I answered. Professional and clipped. "Miss Shepard, this is Mark Ellison, building manager at Westside Towers." His voice was cold, stripped of warmth. My stomach dropped. "We've had an incident in the lobby involving a woman claiming to be your mother." The world tilted. "What kind of incident?" I asked, though some part of me already knew. "The police are here, Miss Shepard." "I think you need to hear what happened." 20 minutes earlier, according to Mark, my mother had entered the lobby with her usual confidence, the kind that comes from never being told no. She'd gone straight to the elevator bank, pulled out her old key, and tried to insert it into the call panel. Nothing. She tried again. And again. The key that had granted her unauthorized access for months was now useless. That's when she pivoted to the reception desk. "You need to let me into my daughter's apartment," she told Marcus, the security guard. Not asked, told that Marcus followed protocol. "Ma'am, I'll need your ID and to confirm you're on the approved visitor list." "I don't need to be on a list." "I'm her mother." Mark said her voice had already begun to rise, that sharp edge I knew too well creeping in. "She's sick. She needs me. I'm sorry, ma'am, but your name isn't on the lease. And Miss Shepard specifically requested that we not grant you access without her approval." That's when Patricia changed tactics. "She didn't get violent," Mark said tightly. "That would have been easier." She stood in the center of the lobby, tears streaming, grabbing the sleeves of residents as they passed. She told them I was being held against my will, that I was having a breakdown, that the building was preventing a mother from saving her child. I squeezed my eyes shut, nausea rolling through me. It was perfectly calculated. When Marcus asked her to step back, Mark continued. She sat down, right there on the marble floor in front of the elevators. She screamed, "I'm not leaving. Call the police. Let them see how you treat a worried mother." She clogged the entryway, turned the lobby into a spectacle. Residents pulled out phones. She weaponized public pity against private security protocols. The police intervened not because she was violent, but because she refused to leave and caused a civil disturbance. "She forced our hand," Mark said. By the time officers arrived, she was fully committed to the victim role. She showed them her old key as proof, begged them to force us to let her in. But Marcus had his instructions, and Mark had the lease with only my name on it. And the police had a woman refusing to leave private property. A report was filed, official, case number included. She was ordered to leave and not return. "Miss Shepard," Mark said, breaking my silence. "I need to be clear. This building has a reputation to maintain. We have elderly residents, families. We cannot allow this kind of theatrical disturbance." "I understand," I whispered, gripping my phone. "I'm so sorry. If this happens again," he continued, voice like ice, "we will terminate your lease early. That goes on your rental history. Your credit score will be affected. Future landlords will see an eviction for cause." My vision blurred. In America, credit isn't just a number. It's access to housing, transportation, sometimes employment. Rental history is the difference between having a home and being locked out everywhere. I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and my mother's hands were on my back. "It won't happen again," I said, meaning it with every cell in my body. "I promise." See that it doesn't, he said, and hung up. I sat at my desk, surrounded by coffee cups, spreadsheets, and motivational posters, and felt something crack open in my chest. That night, I called Hannah and Maya. We met at Maya's apartment, a cozy studio that smelled like vanilla candles and safety. I told them everything: the lobby, the police, the threat to my lease, my mother's performance. She's going to ruin me, I said, voice breaking. My credit, my rental history, everything. She burned my life down just to prove she still controls me. Hannah leaned forward, gripping my hands. Leah, they don't love you. They want to own you. Love doesn't look like this, Maya said softly. Love doesn't scream lies on a lobby floor. This is possession, but she's my mother. And you're a grown woman, Hannah cut in. You tried boundaries. You tried reason. She responded by involving the police. What else does she need to do before you believe she won't stop? Clarity settled over me, not anger, but resolve. What do I do? I asked. You protect yourself, Maya said. You get a lawyer. You file a restraining order. You make it official. Hannah nodded. You've been fighting fairly. She's not. They were right. The mother I hoped would wake up and see me clearly either never existed or was long gone. I opened the text thread from my father. The tuition messages. The accusations. Then I pulled up the screenshot of Mark Ellison's number. I need a copy of that police report, I said aloud. Why? Maya asked. Because I'm done asking nicely, I replied. I'm going to court. Radio silence became my weapon. For 48 hours after the lobby incident, I refused to engage. My mother's texts poured in, each one a carefully crafted emotional missile. How could you call the police on your own mother? We raised you better. Everyone is asking what we did wrong. Your father's blood pressure is dangerously high. If something happens, that's on you. My father's messages were colder, wrapped in money and obligation. We're willing to forgive the $40,000 if you apologize and return the key. This is your last chance before we pursue legal action. I didn't respond. I didn't block them either. Every message was evidence. Every threat another brick in the case I was building. They thought my silence meant fear. They had no idea I was preparing for war. Thursday morning, I withdrew $300 from my emergency fund. The teller counted the bills without knowing she was handing me ammunition. It wasn't much, but it was enough. From the bank, I went to the West Side Towers office. Mark Ellison looked wary when I knocked. I need a copy of the police report, I said. For legal purposes? He studied me, then nodded. 10 minutes. He returned with 3 stapled pages, the official Chicago Police Department incident report. Marcus's account was devastating in its neutrality. Subject created a civil disturbance. Made false claims regarding resident welfare. Refused to vacate private property. Thank you, I said. I hope you're handling this. Mark added. I am, I replied. Later that day, I entered the Cook County District Court building, all concrete and authority. I clutched my folder and walked through security. At the clerk's desk sat a woman named Dana Whitmore. I need to file for a restraining order, I said. Temporary or permanent? Temporary. She slid a form toward me. Be specific. Dates, times, incidents. Documentation helps. I sat in a bolted plastic chair and began to write. Everything poured out: the unauthorized key, the intrusion into my home, the changed locks, the lobby breakdown, the police report. I made sure to emphasize the specific legal language I'd researched the night before. That my mother's escalating behavior constituted a credible threat of imminent harm to my mental well-being and my housing security. I attached printed screenshots of my parents' messages, the ones I'd organized at work earlier, timestamps highlighted, threats clearly visible. When I handed the completed petition back to Dana, she read through it with practiced efficiency. Her face remained neutral, but when she reached the police report, she paused. "This is solid documentation," she said, finally looking up. "Most people don't come in this prepared." "I learned fast," I replied. She stamped the papers, processed my $300 payment, and slid a receipt toward me. "Judge Ramirez is fair in these cases. You're not going to lose. Try not to worry." "Thank you," I said, hands trembling as I gathered the documents. "Thank you so much." Her expression softened just a fraction. "You're doing the right thing. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." From the courthouse, I went straight back to see Mark Ellison. This time, I came armed. "Mr. Ellison, I filed for a restraining order today." I laid the paperwork on his desk, the Troll petition, the police report, the court receipt. "I want you to know I'm taking this seriously." He picked up the pages, reading carefully. "This is good," he said. "Very good." "There's something else," I continued, my pulse pounding. "I need to break my lease early." His expression clouded. "Miss Shepherd, you're aware there's a penalty. Section 14.3 of the Illinois Safe Homes Act." I interrupted. "Tenants experiencing stalking or harassment with documented police reports may terminate their lease without penalty if there's a credible threat of harm on the premises." "I have the police report. I have the restraining order filing. I qualify." Mark stared at me for a long moment, then back at the paperwork. I watched him calculate liability risk, future disturbances, the legal protections I was invoking. Finally, he nodded. "When do you want to be out?" "End of next week, if possible." "I'll waive the penalty," he said. "But you'll need to be out by the 31st. And Miss Shepherd, you're making the right decision." I walked out dizzy. The lease break penalty would have been over $2,000 money I didn't have, money that would have trapped me. Instead, I just saved it all. Money I could use for a new deposit, money I could use to disappear. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "We're coming over next Saturday to talk face to face. We'll bring lunch. Your favorite? Meatloaf." I stared at the message, feeling nothing but cold resolve. Come next Saturday, I wouldn't be there. And by the time they realized what I'd done, it would already be too late. 5 days later, I learned that freedom often demands comfort as its price. I signed the new lease on Tuesday afternoon. The studio at Riverside Towers was safer doorman, key fobs, cameras everywhere, but suffocatingly small. It was the only place I could afford with the level of security I needed. My budget was obliterated. Court filing, deposit, first month's rent. Everything drained. Friday night, I stood in my old apartment staring at my sectional couch. It was the first nice thing I'd ever bought for myself. It wouldn't fit in the new elevator. Even if it did, it wouldn't fit in the new apartment. "We have to leave it," I told Hannah, my voice flat. "We can try to pivot it. We can't, and I can't afford storage." So we dragged it to the curb. I watched a scavenger haul it away 20 minutes later. That night, in my new fortress of an apartment, I slept on a mattress on the floor. I ate instant ramen because I had exactly $30 left until payday. My back hurt. My stomach growled. The room was so small I could touch both walls if I stretched out, but for the first time in 26 years, I slept without dreaming of someone breaking in at 2 a.m. I slid my old keys into the after-hours drop box at the management office. Mark Ellison would find them in the morning, along with my forwarding form listing Hannah's address, not my real location. Another wall. Another layer of safety. Done? Hannah asked as I climbed back into the van. "Done," I said. Maya started the engine. "Then let's get you home." Patricia and Robert arrived at my old apartment Saturday afternoon. I know this because Hannah stationed across the street in a coffee shop. Yes, we'd gone full surveillance, texted me at 3:47 p.m. They're here. Cream cardigan. Casserole dish. Dad looks pissed. I pictured it perfectly. Patricia armed with comfort food and tears. Robert rehearsing his lecture about obligation and debt. Both convinced I was inside, waiting to collapse under pressure. They knocked. No answer. Knocked harder. Still nothing. Patricia pressed her ear to the door. Silence. Eventually, they found Mark Ellison. He checked his records, professional and neutral. Miss Shepard terminated her lease earlier this week. No forwarding address beyond a friend's P.O. box. Privacy policy dot at 4:23. Hannah texted again. They just left. Your mom's furious. Your dad's yelling at her in the parking lot. I waited dot at 4:31. My phone rang. Mother cell flashed across the screen. I blocked them days ago, but I'd known they'd find a workaround. Borrowed phones. New numbers. Desperation. I'd prepared. A separate Google Voice number given to exactly 3 places: the court, my HR department, and Mark Ellison. That number forwarded to my phone with a distinct ringtone. This call came through that line. I answered on the 4th ring. Hello? Where are you? Patricia snapped, fury wrapped in ice. What have you done? I've moved, I said calmly, sitting cross-legged on my mattress. As is my legal right. As an adult. With my own lease. You can't just disappear. I can, actually. And I have... Robert's voice cut in on speakerphone. Leah, this is ridiculous. We drove all the way over to talk to you, and you're gone. What kind of daughter does that? The kind who files police reports, I interrupted. The kind who documents harassment. The kind who takes legal action when her parents refuse to respect basic boundaries. Silence. Then his voice wavered. Legal action? I took a measured breath, savoring the weight of it. The petition for a restraining order was accepted by the court based on last week's police report. The judge reviewed the evidence, the break-in, the trespassing, the harassment, all of it. The papers will be served. You're bluffing. Patricia's voice trembled. Am I? I said calmly. You'll see when the process server shows up. I hung up. My hands were steady. My breath even. I felt powerful in a way I never had before, not cruel dominance, but quiet strength. The kind that comes from protecting yourself. From enforcing boundaries, not with hope or guilt, but with law. Evan Brooks was waiting at their driveway when they got home. Hannah had recommended him. Her cousin worked at the firm that used him regularly. He was meticulous, professional, persistent. He didn't take nonsense. I paid him $200 from my fragile emergency fund. Worth every penny. According to Evan's text at 6:02 p.m., Patricia and Robert pulled into their driveway at 5:58, still arguing. Evan approached the driver's side window before Robert even shut off the engine. Robert Shepard? Patricia Shepard? You've been served. He handed them the thick manila envelope through the window. Inside, the temporary restraining order, court date, police report, copies of Patricia's texts, photos of my apartment post-intrusion, a detailed harassment timeline. Everything documented. Everything undeniable. Evan texted me a photo. My parents' faces, pale and stunned, frozen behind the windshield, the envelope resting on Robert's lap. Job done. I stared at the photo. My mother's mouth agape. My father's hand mid-gesture, caught by a legal reality he couldn't bully or guilt his way out of. They hadn't just lost control of me, they were facing consequences. Real ones. Court dates, restrictions, public record. I saved the photo, then deleted it. I didn't need a trophy. I had freedom. 3 months later, the necessary coldness had settled in. My life had transformed. No tearful reconciliation coffees. No ambush dinners. No surprise visits. The temporary restraining order became permanent after a brief court hearing. Judge Ramirez reviewed the evidence, listened to Patricia's lawyer claim it was all a misunderstanding between family, and said flatly, "Weaponizing building security and creating a civil disturbance to access an adult's home is not a misunderstanding. It is harassment. Order granted for 1 year, renewable if violations occur. Now my life existed behind professional security. Marcus, a retired Marine, doorman at Riverside Towers, knew my face, schedule, and explicitly that no one entered without my approval. My parents, especially not them," I'd said after Patricia tried sweet-talking her way past the desk. Marcus nodded once, understood, handled. She tried twice more. Both times, Marcus firmly told her to leave, or he'd call the police. The third time, he did. She never returned. Financially, I was still recovering. The move had drained my emergency fund despite waived fees. Security deposit, first month's rent, moving truck, Evan's fee, and the slow replacement of furniture. My checking account was anemic. My savings nearly gone. I ate cheap meals, but they tasted better in a home that was truly mine, and I felt wealthy in ways money couldn't buy. Coming home to a place uninvaded, a phone that didn't spike anxiety, making plans without calculating surprise interruptions. Hannah and Maya were my chosen family, sisters I picked, not inherited. We had sacred Wednesday dinners. "You seem different," Maya observed one evening, wine glass gesturing. "Lighter somehow." "I am lighter," I said. "Not carrying their expectations anymore." Hannah raised her glass. "Two boundaries, may they be high strong and equipped with security cameras." We drank to that. Work improved too. My boss noticed. "Performance has improved this quarter, more focus, more confidence. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." I smiled. Personal changes. Better work-life balance. Energy returned when I wasn't defending against intrusion. My campaigns were sharper, more creative. Two approved. My salary still $55,000, but a raise was likely next review. I was building a life actively, shaped by choices, protected by fought-for boundaries. Late May, small balcony, chair, and potted plant, watching the Chicago skyline turn gold. My phone beside me silent, peace, a buzz. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but curiosity or confidence from knowing I was safe made me tap. "Mom, cook the meatloaf you like. Dad says he'll forgive the money issue if you come home. We miss you." I analyzed it like a marketing strategy because that's what it was. Emotional manipulation, nostalgia weaponized. Financial guilt, carrot dangling. "We miss you" meant nothing but responsibility foisted on me. Classic hoovering, lure back through memory and obligation. I felt pity. Cool, measured indifference. Pity for two people so unable to accept reality that the same failed tactics were still attempted. Pity for desperation behind a burner phone and dinner invitation wrapped in manipulation. Their actions no longer had power to hurt me. They couldn't see me as a person. Only a role, dutiful daughter, permanent child, emotional support system. I would never be that again. I tapped the number. Options appeared. Thumb hovered over block caller, not hesitation but acknowledgement. This was it. The final door closing. The last thread cut. I pressed it. Screen confirmed. Caller blocked. I set the phone down, looked at the skyline. City lights glittered. 1,000 windows, each someone living their life, fighting battles. Building peace out on my balcony in absolute silence, I smiled. I was safe. I was free.